So let's talk about what happens after you've already won. For the people who've achieved pretty much everything you can in the outside world. Turns out there's a final frontier, and it's not out there, it's in here. Today, we're diving into the unique challenges the ultra-wealthy face and a really interesting framework designed to help them navigate it.
And this quote from spiritual researcher Yogi Satya, it just hits the nail on the head. We spend our whole lives thinking that mastering the outside world is the finish line. But what he's suggesting is that it's actually just the starting point for a totally different and maybe even more important journey.
I mean, it's a wild question, isn't it? When you can buy anything you want, go anywhere, shape industries, what could possibly be left? What could you possibly be missing? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is a lot.
And this is where things get really interesting. There's this paradox at the absolute peak of success. You've got everything, but some of the most fundamental human needs, they're still completely out of reach.
So Yogi Satya, working with this very specific group, started to notice a pattern. He found that the same inner challenges kept popping up again and again. We're going to look at the big three: the hunt for real peace, the need for a purpose beyond just winning, and the search for real, genuine connections.
All right, the first one. This is something you might not expect. You'd think that if you're in control of a massive empire, you'd feel in control inside too. But that's often not the case at all.
Think about the constant pressure, the weight of all those decisions. True inner quiet, a sense of peace that doesn't get rattled by the chaos outside, that becomes the ultimate luxury. And it's the one thing you absolutely cannot buy. You have to build it.
Okay, number two. This one cuts right to the heart of a huge existential question. You spend your entire life climbing and climbing, and then one day you get to the top, look around, and ask a really scary question. What happens when you've hit every single goal you ever set for yourself? You'd think it would feel amazing, but for a lot of people, it just feels empty. The chase, the struggle, that was where the meaning was. And now that the chase is over, they're left thinking, so what now?
And the third challenge, this one's kind of tough. It turns out that after you've mastered the world of things, all that wealth can actually make the very human need for connection way more complicated.
I mean, imagine trying to figure out who your real friends are. When you're that successful, are people connecting with you or with what you can do for them? It can lead to this profound sense of isolation right in the middle of all that success.
This quote just sums it all up, doesn't it? The whole climb, the endless pursuit of more, it doesn't actually lead to some final blissful destination. It just shows you that the ladder was never really the point. So if the external ladder isn't the answer, what is?
Well, in response to these exact challenges, Yogi Satya didn't just write a philosophy book. He developed a system. He calls it an inner technology, a practical, step-by-step way to master your inner world, with the same kind of precision you'd use to master the outer one.
It's called the Consciousness in Action Framework, or CIA for short, and that name is super intentional. This isn't about sitting around and passively thinking. It's about actively and scientifically evolving your own consciousness using a structured, verifiable process.
And the reason it's so compelling is that it's not just one thing. It's this incredible mashup of hard sciences. We're talking neuroscience, cognitive science, with deep, time-tested experiential practices. It's a system built for a logical, results-oriented kind of person.
And this is a really, really important distinction they make. This is deliberately set up to be different from religion or traditional mysticism. It doesn't ask you to believe anything. It doesn't require faith. It's a scientific pathway that says, hey, don't take our word for it. Test it. See for yourself.
So you might be wondering, okay, why is this aimed specifically at the ultra-wealthy? Well, the argument is that this kind of deep inner work needs a few things that this group has in spades: freedom from day-to-day survival worries, the stability to really focus, and the self-direction to truly dedicate yourself to the process.
Now you have to understand, this whole framework didn't just come out of a lab or a university. It's deeply personal. It actually grew out of the author's own life-changing experience, which is why he presents it as an experiment, not some doctrine you have to believe in.
See, back in 2011, he had what he calls a direct recognition of consciousness, this massive personal breakthrough. The entire framework is basically his attempt to reverse engineer that experience, to turn it into a repeatable system that other people can follow to get similar results. And just look at the goals here. They're not vague or abstract. We're talking about tangible, practical benefits. Better decision-making, more creativity,
less psychological stress, a real sense of mental clarity. These are outcomes that would be a huge asset for anyone, especially a high performer.
So the invitation he puts out there is basically a scientific method for your own mind. The message is simple. Don't just believe me. Step 1, try it yourself. Step 2, think about it. Does it make sense? And step 3, judge it based on what you actually observe in your own life. It's a system designed to be tested.
So let's boil all this down. What's the big takeaway? And how does this idea apply to the rest of us, not just billionaires?
The core idea is simple, but it's really powerful. Once the big challenges of the outside world are handled, success, money, influence, the final, and maybe the toughest, journey of mastery is the one that turns inward, into our own minds.
And that really leaves us all with a pretty big question. We all have our own ladders we're trying to climb, our own versions of success. But beyond all that, what's the inner frontier that you haven't explored yet? Because that right there might just be the most important exploration you ever undertake.